Despite the release of the second tranche of the Paris Club refunds to the 36 states in the country, 7 of them comprising Borno, Cross River, Anambra, Abia, Enugu, Ebonyi, Gombe and Bauchi have still not cleared the backlog of unpaid workers' wages in their states. Well, a survey conducted recently by the News Agency of Nigeria showed that many state governments across the federation had utilized the second tranche of the Paris Club debts they received to clear the arrears of their serving and retired workers' entitlements. With us now in the studio to discuss this is a social commentator, Daniel Akinlami. Good to have you here on the News Hour.
Thank you.
So yes, this relief came to the states, and one was expecting that finally it will, we wouldn't have the same story of no payment of salaries anymore. But yet, it still lingers. But let me first have your reaction to this news that states are still yet to pay salaries despite the Paris Club refund earlier on.
Well, I think the reality is that most of these governors are quite owing so much that the second tranche of the Paris Club refund could not take care most of the arrears in terms of salaries, pensions, and gratuities. But I think the second tranche that was released in July this year made more impact in the sense that many of the state governments were able to have better compliance this time around compared to the one released in December 2016. But I think the issue of this Paris Club refund is something that there's no statutory supervision or monitoring to how the money is to be spent. These are over deductions from the federal accounts allocation due to these states that happened between 1995 and 2002. So they were entitled to the money because they were over deducted. So there's no statutory supervision on how it is spent. But I remember then when this money was released in July, federal government advised that the state government should spend about 50 to 75% of this fund to clear areas of salaries, pensions, and gratuities. Right. So, and I think many of the states actually complied this time around. Right. But for these 7 states we're talking about, I think many of them have complacent labor organization in their states.
All right. Let me comment here. Well, they are complaining that the funds aren't enough. But shouldn't these states be more proactive in terms of, generating funds internally rather than go cap in hands to a federal government all the time?
Well, that's the same thing we've been saying over the time, that the state executive need to look inward and drive the state economy in the way that they can be able to generate enough IGR to cater at least for the basic things that having to do with salaries. So, but it's still unfortunate that at the end of the month, they still have to go to Abuja to go and collect allocation. But in this particular situation, I think part of the difference here, why some other states were able to comply with the advice from federal government, was simply the amount of pressure mounted on these state governors by the labor union. Look at Southwest in particular. There are several pressures mounted on the governors. As soon as that money was released, even there are some states that NLC and TUC, they marched to state assembly, marched to government house. So they didn't give them enough room to start thinking of what other else available that they need to, push money into. So they mounted the pressure, like the Borno case. The NLC chapter of Borno even said they were not aware the money was released. They said they learned on the internet that they've released this Paris fund. They were not aware. So if some of those states are putting more pressure, followed the disbursement, and whatever government is planning to use it to execute for, it would have made a big difference.
So in your opinion now, you believe the labor has a lot of role to play now to ensure that the governments of these states where salaries are owed should be able to, listen to them and, fine-tune or, get their workers, the salaries of these workers paid. Am I correct?
Definitely. Definitely. Like this scenario now, this is like allocation. So the federal government cannot give condition how the state executives spend this money. So I think the labor has a big role to play to monitor how this money are being disbursed, especially in a kind of special fund like this. You know, this was money that was over deducted from their allocation for a period of 7 years, from 95 to 2002. So, and this money was now refunded to them. So if there was no close marking to what these state executives are planning to disburse this money for, the same story will continue to happen. And also having in mind that many of these states too have big, huge outstandings. Some of them are servicing loans, and then coupled with the arrears in salaries that are running from 2 to 11 months. Right. So it was very tight, but to many of them that really followed the federal government advice, they were able to clear at least up to 70% of the backlog.
All right, Daniel, you remember very clearly during the national conference, under President Goodluck Jonathan, issues about state creation, were also raised. With what we are having at the moment, states, struggling to pay salaries, always going to the federal government, to ask for money to pay salaries and all that. Does this, does this not, tell us that we do not need any more states?
Well, with the reality we're facing today, obviously there's no point to create additional states. In fact, people are even suggesting that some states should merge, especially those states that are not economically viable. So they should merge together so that they can be able to manage the little resources they have and be able to avoid a situation where they are owing salaries, arrears of pensions and gratuity piling up as well. So I think the solution to this is also hanging around the call for restructuring. There's so much wrong with the system we're operating here where all attention is on the central. So this thing having to do with the call for restructuring. So if we have a way to look at those systems that we can amend what we have as a constitution now, that we can take some item from the exclusive list, that some of the states can have power and ability to generate more IGR, or perhaps have power to even generate their own electricity and distribute. So if we have this power being reduced from the central, it should help some of these states that they could tap into many of the resources at their disposal and be able to manage them to build the economy, especially from the local government level, even to the state level, that eventually we can begin to have this input coming from all the states and moving up the income for the national government at the central level.
All right, and that point, thank you very much, Daniel Akinlami, for your analysis. Quite a positive one to end there. We appreciate it. Thanks a lot.